They said the mountain was breathing. At first, no one believed it. The Sherpas whispered, the wind howled, and the ice cracked like bones splitting under pressure. But to the climbers, it was just another storm on Everest. Until the radio signals began to vanish, until every satellite feed went dark, and until the mountain moved. That morning, over 1,000 climbers were scattered along the routes, some pushing toward the summit, others waiting in their tents. Then, without warning, the ground trembled as if something ancient beneath the ice had stirred awake. The snow rippled, tents collapsed, and an unholy roar rolled down the slopes like thunder screaming in pain. "Everest is alive," whispered a Sherpa named Tenzin before the static swallowed his voice. Rescue teams tried to reach them, but no message ever made it back. The mountain had closed in, cutting off every signal, every scream, every trace of life. Only a single drone made it out, its footage showing something no one could explain. Hundreds of figures, standing perfectly still in the blizzard, facing upward, as if waiting for something. Some say it's the curse of the sleeping goddess, that Everest has finally awakened to punish those who keep clawing at her crown. Others say it is something worse, something buried deep within the mountain that was never meant to be found. But one thing is certain. This is no ordinary disaster. This is a story you won't hear on the news. A story that the world wasn't meant to see. Before we go deeper into what really happened on that frozen peak, hit subscribe to Ben's Stories. Because what is coming next will change everything you think you know about Everest. The first to vanish was Camp 3. Located high on the Lhotse face, it was home to dozens of climbers, tents fluttering like bright specks on an endless wall of ice. Around 3:17 a.m., one of the Sherpas radioed down to base camp, his voice trembling, words broken by static. "The mountain, it's humming." At first they laughed. Altitude sickness, they thought. Oxygen deprivation playing tricks on the mind. But the humming grew louder. A deep rhythmic vibration that climbed up through the ice and into their bones. Then, the call went silent. When dawn broke, Camp 3 was gone. Not buried, gone. Tents, ropes, food, oxygen tanks, every trace of human presence erased. The snow was smooth, untouched, as if nothing had ever been there. Down at base camp, panic spread like wildfire. Climbers who had ignored the warnings began descending, desperate to escape. But the routes changed. Ladders that were there the day before were twisted or vanished. The Khumbu icefall, known as the murder zone, had shifted overnight. The glacier itself had moved. Then came the lights. Just before midnight, glowing blue orbs began flickering across the upper slopes, dancing in the storm like will-o'-the-wisps. Some climbers filmed them, shimmering shapes, almost human, walking against the wind. Others swore they heard voices in the static, ancient chants echoing across the ice, speaking in a language no one recognized. Expedition leader Marcus Hale tried to restore order. "No one moves without my word," he shouted, his voice breaking in the wind. But even he could not ignore what they found the next morning. A massive crevasse had split open near Camp 2, revealing what looked like steps, perfectly carved into the ice, descending into blackness. Tenzin, the Sherpa who had spoken of the sleeping goddess, refused to go near it. He whispered an old Tibetan legend of Chomolungma, the mother goddess of the world, whose rage could turn men to stone and whose tears became avalanches. "The mountain is reclaiming herself," he said. "We should not be here." But Hale didn't listen. He was obsessed, convinced that something extraordinary lay beneath that glacier. "Everest is hiding something," he muttered, staring into the dark chasm. "Something ancient, something powerful." By the following night, another 200 climbers had vanished. No distress calls, no signals, just silence. The rescue teams below stared at their monitors in disbelief as the blips representing each climber, one by one, blinked out. And above them, in the cold, merciless dark, the mountain began to hum again. By day 3, the blizzard had become something unnatural. The winds weren't blowing across Everest anymore. They were circling it. A vortex, spiraling around the summit like a living storm, trapping everyone still alive above base camp. Marcus Hale stood on the edge of the crevasse, snow lashing his face, headlamp flickering in the icy wind. The hole gaped before him, 20 meters wide, its edges glowing faintly blue from the reflection of the ice walls. It wasn't just a crack, it was an opening, a path down. He turned to Tenzin, who stood behind him clutching a string of prayer flags. "You said this was the goddess's domain," Hale shouted. "Then tell me, and what's down there?" "Her heart," Tenzin replied quietly, "and no man who sees it returns alive." But Hale was beyond fear now. Curiosity, pride, maybe madness. Whatever it was, it pushed him to clip his harness and step over the edge. 3 climbers followed him, a videographer named Liam Carter, a geologist named Mei Lin, and a silent Sherpa known only as Dorje. The rest refused to move. As they descended, the temperature dropped to impossible levels, the kind that shouldn't exist outside of deep space. Their breath froze in midair. The ice around them shimmered, not white but silver, reflecting faint images that weren't their own. Faces, hundreds of faces, pressed behind the ice, mouths open in silent screams. "Is that?" Malin whispered, but Hale silenced her. "Keep moving. They're just reflections." But when Dorje's rope snapped suddenly, clean without warning, the others watched in horror as he fell into the abyss. No sound, no echo, just swallowed whole. Then came the voice. It didn't come through the air. It came from inside their heads. A low, ancient whisper that pulsed with the rhythm of their own heartbeats. "You dig into my bones. You drink my tears. And now you dare touch my heart." The walls began to move. Not collapse, breathe. The ice expanded and contracted, groaning like lungs filling with ancient air. Liam dropped his camera, which shattered against the ground, the footage still recording. Flickering images of twisted forms moving just beyond the light. Maylene screamed, because she finally saw what they had walked into. Embedded within the ice were hundreds of climbing tools, ropes, carabiners, old oxygen tanks, all fused with human remains. Not from this expedition, but from every expedition that ever disappeared. It was a graveyard, frozen in the heart of the mountain, a cathedral of bones and steel, stretching into infinity. When they reached what appeared to be the bottom, the ice opened into a massive chamber, so vast it felt like standing inside the hollow chest of a god. In the center stood something no one could explain, a stone pillar, perfectly smooth, covered in ancient carvings. The air hummed around it. Every breath came with the taste of metal and fear. Tenzin's voice echoed from above, faint and trembling through the radio. "You must come back. You are standing on sacred ground. That is not a rock. It's the mountain's heart." But Hale didn't listen. He reached out and touched the pillar, and at that moment, the mountain screamed, avalanches exploded down every face, winds roared like 1,000 voices in agony. Base camp's last transmission before total blackout recorded one final sound from Hale's microphone, a guttural, unearthly roar that seemed to echo from inside the earth itself. Then, silence. When the storm cleared 3 days later, the crevasse was gone, sealed by fresh snow as if it had never existed. But rescuers who ventured near the site swore they could still hear it. A faint pulse deep under the ice. Like a heartbeat, Everest wasn't dead. It was awake. They thought it was over, that after the storm cleared, the dead could rest and the living could finally go home. But no one leaves Everest once it wakes. The first rescue team arrived 2 days after the blizzard stopped. 16 men, armed with drones, satellite trackers, and oxygen tanks. They expected chaos. Instead, they found quiet. Too quiet. Base camp looked frozen in time. Dozens of tents stood upright, uncollapsed. Food still on tables, untouched. A radio still humming with static. But not a single footprint in the snow. Not one. The rescuers spread out. One of them, Captain Reyes, lifted the flap of a blue tent and froze. Inside sat a climber, perfectly still, eyes open and glassy. His face pale, lips blue. But his body, it wasn't frozen. It was preserved, as if he'd turned to wax. A frostbite that looked too clean, too deliberate. They found 12 more like him, each facing the same direction, north toward the summit. When night fell, the rescuers made camp. But the wind carried voices, faint, layered, whispering words they couldn't understand. Some of the team recorded it, only to hear what sounded like overlapping human tones when slowed down. Not the wind, not echoes, chants. Then their equipment began to fail, one by one. Batteries drained, GPS flickered, radios filled with a low hum, the same hum that had haunted Camp 3 before it vanished. Around midnight, the first man screamed. The others rushed out of their tents and froze at what they saw. Dozens of figures moving slowly down the slope, half buried in snow, their skin white as the ice itself, their eyes black, glimmering in the dark. The missing climbers. Captain Reyes raised his flare gun, the red light cutting through the blizzard, and saw Marcus Hale among them, his face hollow, his climbing suit torn, frost crystals hanging from his beard. He opened his mouth and what came out wasn't a voice. It was the mountain's hum, deep, ancient, vibrating through the earth. The flare died. The light went out, and then the snow swallowed them whole. Only one rescuer, a Nepali climber named Dorji Lama, made it down alive. He was found wandering 30 kilometers away, barefoot, clothes torn, eyes wide open, muttering in a broken whisper, "They aren't gone. The mountain's feeding. Every soul it takes becomes part of her body." He died 2 days later in a hospital in Kathmandu. His autopsy showed something impossible. Traces of silica crystal fused into his lungs, like he had inhaled ice. That same night, satellites recorded unusual seismic activity near the summit, rhythmic pulses, evenly spaced, matching a human heartbeat. Scientists blamed glacier movement, but locals knew better. They remembered the ancient prophecy of Chomolungma, the sleeping goddess. When men climb her crown too often, when pride drowns in the thin air, she will wake to take back her breath. And she had. Hundreds of frozen figures now dotted the death zone. Standing upright, staring toward the sky, climbers, rescuers, Sherpas. As the sun rose, their outlines glittered in the light, like a silent army carved from ice. But when night came again, the drones caught movement. One by one, the statues shifted, their heads turned toward the cameras, and then the signal died. 3 weeks after contact was lost, the world finally looked up at Everest and saw something it had never seen before. From satellites orbiting above the Himalayas, strange patterns began to appear on the mountain's face. Not snow ridges, not shadows, but symmetrical lines, glowing faintly blue in the dark, spiraling from the summit down through the South Col like veins of light beneath the ice. They pulsed slowly, rhythmically, like a living thing. At first, scientists dismissed it as a trick of light, reflections from headlamps, aurora effects, anything to explain away what they were seeing. But as the hours passed, the lights grew brighter, weaving together to form a massive circular shape visible even from space. A single unblinking eye, and in that moment, the world realized something terrifying. Everest was watching. A new expedition was formed, not climbers this time, but a classified team of military and scientific personnel. Among them was Dr. Mei Lin, the geologist who had vanished with Marcus Hale, but somehow reappeared near Camp 1, frostbitten and half-conscious. She was found kneeling in the snow, repeating the same phrase over and over. "It's awake. It remembers." Mei Lin was brought to Kathmandu, where she was kept under medical isolation. She hadn't eaten in 3 days, yet her vitals were steady, heart rate slow, steady, inhumanly stable. When interrogated, she spoke softly, her voice hollow. "You don't climb Everest. It climbs you," she explained, or tried to, that deep beneath the mountain's ice was something ancient, older than civilization. "Everest isn't a mountain," she said. "It's a vessel, a living monument built from the bones of the earth. Every soul that dies on her slopes becomes part of her memory." She showed them a drawing scratched into her arm with a shard of ice. The same spiral pattern seen glowing from space. "It's her mark," she whispered. "The sign of awakening." Then, in the middle of the interview, her eyes rolled white. Her voice deepened, layered, not one voice but many, speaking in perfect unison. "The summit is full. The gates must open." Seconds later, every monitor in the facility flickered. Outside, seismographs went wild, the ground trembling thousands of miles away, yet perfectly synchronized with her heartbeat. When guards burst into the room, she was gone. No broken windows, no footprints, just a pile of frost where she had been sitting. That night, Everest glowed brighter than ever before. A swirling blue storm encased its upper slopes, and through the clouds, cameras captured hundreds, no, thousands, of faint human silhouettes marching upward in the dark. Dead climbers. Lost souls, moving toward the summit like moths to a flame, and at the very top, something was waiting. A colossal figure, half-formed from snow and stone, shifting in the storm's light. It raised its head slowly, and in one horrifying instant, every camera on Earth caught the same image. A woman's face. eyes closed, crowned in ice. Chomolungma, the sleeping goddess. The feed went black. For 2 days the mountain was hidden in storm. When the clouds finally broke, the summit had changed shape. It was taller, sharper. New ridges had formed, ridges that resembled fingers curling gently upward toward the sky. The world's highest point was no longer a peak. It was a hand, and on the winds that screamed through the Himalayas, climbers reported hearing a single, whispering word carried through the air. More. Everest wasn't just hungry for souls. It was becoming something else. It began with a sound, not thunder, not wind, something deeper, a vibration that rippled through the earth and resonated in people's bones even thousands of miles away. Radios picked it up first, a low rhythmic pulse echoing across all frequencies, the hum of Everest. Then came the signal. Every satellite above the Himalayas detected a single encrypted broadcast, coordinates that led straight to the summit. When decoded, it contained one chilling sentence: "The mountain remembers." News networks went silent. Governments denied everything. But on the dark web, a video appeared. Time-stamped. Geotagged at Everest Base Camp. The uploader was listed as M. Hale, Marcus Hale. The man everyone thought was dead. The video begins with static, then slowly clears. Hale's face fills the screen. Pale, frostbitten, eyes sunken but burning with something that isn't quite human. Snow swirls behind him like ghosts dancing in the dark. His voice cracks as he speaks, almost whispering, "If you're watching this, it's too late. We dug too deep. We found what wasn't meant to be found. The mountain isn't stone. It's flesh. It's dreaming." He turns the camera toward the slopes behind him. Shapes are moving in the blizzard, hundreds of them. Climbers, Sherpas, rescuers, all walking upward, faces blank, hands raised toward the summit. Each step perfectly in sync, as if pulled by invisible strings. Hale's voice trembles. She's calling them. The goddess Chomolungma, every climber who's ever died here. She's calling them back. Then he screams, the sound distorted, part human, part something else. The camera falls, spinning in the snow. For a split second, the lens catches a figure towering through the storm. A colossal face carved in the clouds, eyes opening for the first time in thousands of years. And then, nothing. The screen cuts to black. When investigators reached base camp weeks later, there was no body, no camera, only a single trail of footprints leading away from the camp, not upward, but down, toward the valleys, toward the villages, as if something or someone had come down from the mountain. Since that day, strange phenomena have been reported around the base of Everest: sudden snowfalls in warm weather, whispers carried in windless air, and figures glimpsed at night standing motionless along the ridges. Locals say the goddess is no longer sleeping, that each year the mountain grows, not by snow, but by the souls it devours. Satellite scans show Everest is now 3 meters taller than it was before the disaster. Scientists argue over tectonic shifts, but deep down everyone knows Everest isn't growing. It's feeding, and somewhere beneath the ice a heartbeat still echoes. Thump, thump, thump. If you ever stand at her base and feel the wind go still, listen closely, because the mountain might just be listening back, and when she whispers your name, don't look up. This is the story the world wasn't meant to hear. The story buried under snow, silence, and fear. But here, at Ben Stories, we dig up what the world tries to hide. If this tale sent a chill down your spine, hit subscribe, tap the bell, and join us next time, where another secret waits beneath the ice. Because on Everest, the dead are never really gone.